In today's video, we are going to build this amazing black walnut box. Spoiler alert, this may be my favorite woodworking project that I've ever done. It's just so clean, so classy. In this video, you're going to get tips on joining in-grain to in-grain, pouring epoxy, dyes, finishing, and much, much more. So be sure to watch to the very end. Without further ado, let's get started. The first thing we're going to want to do is surface our lumber. Some of this has been planed a little bit, but you can definitely tell there's still rough saw marks on some of these boards. However, they're already surfaced on one side, so we should be able to clean this up on the planer and the table saw. We should not need a jointer, and that's good because I do not have one. So yeah, we don't need a jointer. We're really gonna make this box from two tools. These boards have a live edge. All of them have live edges, which is actually pretty cool. We're going to utilize this right here. I'm gonna let this be the top of the box that kind of opens like that. And this live edge, or maybe this live edge, will leave kind of facing forward to give this a little interest. But for the box part of the box, we don't need the live edge. We need to straighten these up. And since they're live edge on both sides, we're going to need a jig. What this jig is doing is clamping our board with a live edge to a piece of plywood that has a perfectly straight edge. So when we run this through the table saw blade is referencing against this straight edge here. So it'll transfer this edge to this edge, which will no longer be a live edge, but a straight edge, which is what we need for the edge of the box.
Black walnut dust is toxic. So when you're using a table saw and creating black walnut dust, wear a respirator.
Now we have one straight edge. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my 3, or really 4 sides of the box. I think this, I'm gonna let be the front face of the box. It's got a little bit of almost sapwood here. I like that contrasting color. And then I'm gonna use probably this for the sides because I like it second best. And then this board over here. I mean, they all look pretty consistent, but I'm gonna use this one for the back of the box. Now, I told you that I left the live edge here because this is gonna be the lid for the box. And by the way, if you're seeing this crack and you're like, what are we gonna do with that? Keep watching. You'll see. Also, the type of joint we're going to use is going to be kind of like a picture frame joint. So we're going to cut these on a 45. There are 2 keys to making sure that your box will be 100% square. The first key is you want these angles to be exactly 45 degrees. We already checked that with really good accuracy on the digital angle gauge. Second factor, you want to make sure that the opposite ends of the box, so the front and back and the 2 sides are exactly the same length. And so we put these back to back, line them up, and they're exactly the same length. The bottom of this box is not gonna really be seen, so I'm gonna use some 1/8 inch plywood for the bottom. We're gonna cut a rabbet in the bottom of all 4 sides, and then install the bottom. So here's my setup on my table saw for cutting these rabbets. I have my table saw depth, I'll show you on the other side here, set to a little less than half of the thickness of the board. Then what I'm doing is I'm cutting the rabbet about a 1/2 inch up from basically the bottom of the box. So that way the plywood bottom, it won't be sitting directly on the bottom of like the table it's sitting on, but it'll be raised a little bit. I'll show you what I mean in just a second. One more note is keep in mind how we have a darker side of the wood and a lighter side of the wood. Make your rabbet on a consistent side if you want to match up your grain, which I would suggest doing. Two entire blade widths should be the perfect fit for you to throw some 1/8 inch plywood in here. It's actually a little snug right now. Oh man. I thought I had it perfect. Okay, so 2 or 3 saw blades should be enough to fit this in here. I'm gonna go ahead and do a dry check just to make sure. That 45 looks really nice. Okay, I have just dry fit this box together and it is looking amazing. Our angles are really, really good. The base doesn't have any gaps in it. This box just is turned out really, really well, which if you take your time, make sure you have your angles right, then that's exactly how it should turn out. Yo, what's up? Before we put this box together, if you could do me one favor, hit the like button on this video. It's free. It's totally free for you. I think most people usually just forget. So like button. Now let's finish up the box. Okay, y'all, now it's time for the fun part, which is putting the box together. So we are going to use glue joints to put the 4 sides of the box together. I'm going to let the bottom just sit in this rabbet. There's no possible way it can come out once these 4 sides are secured together. And also that will just allow for some wood movement as the seasons and the temperature and humidity changes. So this is super, super important. If you've been tuned out in this video, like zone back in because this is a key woodworking tip. This is the end grain of a board. Probably most of you knew that. But if you glue end grain to end grain like this, it is a very weak joint. So we're going to do 2 things to reinforce this joint. The first thing we're gonna do is take some Titebond 3 glue and put it on here, and we're just going to let that glue dry. What this is going to do is basically cut off the straws in the wood that suck the water in. So one of the reasons an in-grain glue joint is not strong is that when you glue it together, the glue usually just gets sucked up into the board. So we're gonna do 1 batch of glue, let it dry, then we're gonna come and glue this board together. After that, we're going to reinforce these joints with splines. I have a super simple way to do this, and I'll show you that in just a second. So it's been about an hour, and I'm ready to glue this up. So this is a pretty basic glue up. I'm gonna use Titebond 3. You wanna make sure there's no dust or anything on these joints. Now remember, after I do this glue up, and it dries, we're gonna add some splines. Sorry about that technical difficulty. My camera gimbal decided to fall over. The glue is dry, so we're gonna go ahead and take these clamps off. Uh-oh. This is still an in-grain to in-grain joint, and we did the little 2 coats of glue trick, but we're gonna run some splines on the corners of this. And I've got several tips for how you can make perfect splines. So check these out. So this jig is designed to slide along my table saw fence, and I have 2 boards screwed into the jig here that form a, I guess they're at 45s to form a 90-degree angle. I use this a lot when I make picture frames, which by the way, I have a video on making picture frames where I use this jig up here if you want to check that out. But what I'm going to do is basically set my box in here, make sure that it's resting on both of these boards. Then I'll position my fence at whatever depth I want it, and then run the box through to make the spot for the splines. Super, super important that you check your table saw depth. I'll show you a better angle right here, but you don't want to cut too deep or else you'll cut straight through the box. So now what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of glue down in this, in these splines, and then insert these triangles, I guess the splines, in here. Keep in mind, I didn't cut these perfectly. We're gonna trim these up later, so they do not have to be perfect. What in the world are we going to do about this? We're going to fill it with epoxy. Now, I gotta be honest, I debated for at least 5 minutes on whether I should fill this with black epoxy or if I should dye it some crazy color like blue. I think I'm gonna go with black, give this more of a rustic feel, but let me know in the comments which you would have chosen. First step is to take this up on the bottom and side. Take your time with this because you do not want epoxy leaking. Then we'll mix up some epoxy, pour it in here. It's been about an hour, and so these splines are dried. I'm gonna take my flush trim saw and just go ahead and start trimming up. Trimming up these splines. Go slow here because you don't want to rip this. You don't want these to break. This looks pretty rough right now, but I think this is actually gonna be pretty sweet. This might be one of the best boxes I've ever made. We shall see. Let's go ahead and sand this, and then we're gonna get to the fun part, which is finishing. Sanding is done, and this box is looking sweet. This might be one of my favorite woodworking projects that I've ever done. I know this is so simple, but I'm just really a fan of the way this has turned out. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna finish this. I'm gonna show you my process for this, put the hinges on it, and then stick around because I just decided I'm going to do something a little unique with this box. And so just stick around. I'll tell you about that in a second. But let's go ahead and do the finish. I'm just gonna do a very basic semi-gloss polyurethane finish. I use foam brushes. I'll link both of those things in the description below, and you can check those out. But when we put the finish on this, it's going to look the hinges are installed on this box and it is done. This might be one of my favorite woodworking projects that I've ever made. I think it's just super, super classy. I love the black walnut. I love the highlights that the splines give. I love how the epoxy turned out in the check in the lid. So honestly, this was a great, great build. Now, what I think I'm going to do in the future is make this my CNC small parts box. I have a CNC that got here to the shop a few weeks ago, and soon I'll be making videos about me getting that CNC up and running and different projects I'll incorporate the CNC with. So if you're interested in that, you can subscribe. But what I'm going to do is build out inside this box spots for CNC bits, spots for clamps, and other accessories. And so if you're interested in seeing me finish out the inside of the box, hit the subscribe button. That video will be coming soon. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I try to look through all of those. Cannot wait to see you guys on the next build.